What is credit risk? Credit risk, the risk of loss due to a borrower being unable to repay a debt in full or in part. What are the different approaches to calculating credit risk? Standardized approach or SA. In standardized approach, external ratings provided by credit rating agencies, which are recognized as External Credit Assessment Institution, ECAI, by the national supervisor or the local country-specific regulator is used to derive risk weight. Internal ratings-based approach or IRB. Under IRB approach, banks are permitted to use their internal models to estimate credit risk. IRB approach is further classified into IRB Foundation and IRB Advanced. Under IRB Foundation, banks have to rely on supervisor PD, whereas under IRB Advanced, banks have the flexibility to use its internal models in arriving at PD and LGD value. Building blocks for the calculator are: exposure class, entity type of the exposure, namely corporates, banks, sovereigns, etc. PD, probability of default, value to be input as a decimal, range is between 0 and 1. LGD, loss given default, value to be input as a decimal, range is between 0 and 1. EAD, exposure at default, whole number greater than 1. Maturity, maturity of the exposure in years, value greater than 0. AVC, asset value correlation factor, usually applied to bank exposures to large regulated or unregulated financial institutions. Let's find risk weight for wholesale corporate exposure rated AAA under standardized approach. Risk weight is 20% in this scenario. Let's find risk weight for wholesale bank exposure for Canada, with short-term indicator of option 1, which means for these exposures a risk weight 1 category less favorable than sovereign. In our example, that of Canada. Risk weight is 20% in this scenario. Let's find risk weight for sovereign exposure, for example for Canada. Country risk classification of sovereign is available from website of OECD.org. Latest ECA score for Canada is AAA under all 3 external rating agencies, Moody's, S&P and Fitch. Therefore, risk weight is 0% in this example. Let's calculate risk weight for wholesale corporate exposure under advanced approach. We have chosen a PD of 0.013, LGD equals 0.35 and maturity of 2.5 years. risk weight under this scenario is 83%. We can see all the parameters used in derivation of this risk weight in the results table. Let's calculate risk weight for an exposure to bank under advanced approach. In addition to PD, LGD and maturity values, we will setting up an additional variable AVC, asset value correlation to 1.25. If this value is not used in your environment, then just set a value of 1. Let's calculate risk weight for an exposure to corporate which is in default, that is, customer has defaulted on payment and exposure is past due. In this scenario, PD or probability of default is 100% or 1. LGD or loss given default is point in time value of exposure at the time of default. Here the institution uses its best estimate of expected loss as an additional factor in calculation.